Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Own Your Creativity, a show where I interview experts, entrepreneurs, and other creatives about how you can move forward with your writing dreams. I'm your host, Elizabeth Johnston, and I want you to know that when you actively set about to own your creativity, you take the lead in your personal and professional life. One way you can do this is by joining our 30-day program, Free Your Inner Writer. You can find out more about it at bit.ly/FYIW-2020. And now, join me as I have a creative, inspiring chat with today's guest. Hello, everybody, and welcome to my interview today with Archana Shetty. I'm really excited to be speaking with her. I'm Elizabeth Johnston of Own Your Creativity and the host of Free Your Inner Writer, our 30-day program. And so today, Archana is going to be speaking to us about a really important topic that centers around emotional intelligence and peak performance as it relates to writers. Archana is an executive leadership coach and mentor. Her expertise is in emotional intelligence and peak performance, as I say. And she's hosted a leadership summit recently where 40 thought leaders like Daniel Goleman, Art Markman, and Dory Clark were speakers. And she leads a selective private members only leaders network, which connects executives, entrepreneurs, with thought leaders, experts, industry leaders to share cutting edge research, ideas, and experiences to solve real business challenges and create better products and services. So welcome, Archana.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for having me here. And congratulations on the wonderful job that you're doing by getting together writers in one space. Well done.
Thank you. Well, I think that's a really important aspect. You have your network that connects all these people to problem solve basically and improve their services and get their voice out there and heard and, connect to their ideal clients and all that. And I think it's similar for writers. They need to create that network or be in a community of like-minded people that have the same goal because, you can go further with people than you can by yourself. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah. And so I thought it was so interesting that you had Dory Clark speak at your summit because she's been on my podcast on your creativity and about talking about the entrepreneurial you, which I thought was really cool. So let's just dive right into the questions. You used to be an Ayurvedic or functional medicine doctor. Tell us about the story of how you went from that to becoming the emotional intelligence coach that you are today.
So that's an interesting story. So the way I began my journey was choosing to become an Ayurvedic or a functional doctor. And I was doing pretty well when I was way back in India. I topped the university, was doing very well with my practice, but then I got married and then I had to move to Qatar where my husband got a job. And funny enough, when I came here, I realized we don't have the license to practice. So then I didn't know what to do. And that is when I looked at myself and looked at the skills that I have and what could I do to adapt to this new space. Because in a way, everything was new culture, new country, new people. So I think it was that skill of adaptability, looking at the situation through a different lens and seeing what skills do we have that I can use in this new space. So I knew that I had some of the computer skills. I had done 2 degrees in computer science, so I knew I could use that. And then I went on to do a master's in business administration and get some professional certification in project management. So that's how I landed into computer science. And then coming to emotional intelligence, as I grew up the corporate ladder, I realized that technical skills are no good if you have to lead a team of people, if you have to bring about change, if you have to inspire people, if you have to move them in a certain direction. So technical skills can only take you to a certain level. There is something different that successful leaders do. And I was in a journey of finding out what is that is something different. That led me to Daniel Goleman's work. So I'd been to US for a year, finished my certification with Daniel Goleman, and I ended up in the emotional intelligence space. And this is my passion actually, to help people improve their lives, not only their businesses, but improve their lives. Because I believe the ripple effect of inspirational leadership, impactful leadership is huge. It not only spreads in your workspace, but your home life as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And your specific niche is to help high-performing executives to excel without burnout. And I think, like,
Yeah.
WHO, has just in the last year identified burnout as, a specific illness. Like, before it didn't have that designation, so it's recognized as a specific problem. Why did you focus on this particular area?
You know what? All my stories come from myself. I realized that when I was having to deal with the corporate job, manage a family, and I did not have help here when I came to Qatar. So it was all me, myself, managing my two children, managing a career, managing a husband, and then we had some social commitments. All of this was coming together. And working hard and hard did not give me was unsatisfied, was not satisfying at all. It eventually led me to working more. More anxiety led to more working hard. And then it was like in a hamster wheel. And I realized that I was on the verge of burnout. I had to do something different. And again, that is when emotional intelligence came to play. So, emotional intelligence is first understanding yourself, your needs, and then understanding others, and how you can marry the two to bring out the best in yourself so that you can have a positive impact on others. So all these areas are tightly related. And you said stress, it's very true. 70% of the organizations have demonstrated, have reported. It's a Gallup report that has come out a few years, I think last year or the year before. 70% of the employees are stressed. And it is not because of the work, because it is they don't know that they are stressed, or they don't know how to manage their stress, how to manage the emotions. So if you know how to manage yourself, your emotions, and how to use your emotions effectively, you can manage your stress in a much better way.
Yeah. So growing up and experiencing life as you did, you realized at some point that stories you told yourself actually had an impact on your personal and professional success. Can you tell us a little bit about, how you came to that realization?
Absolutely. I think stories are a part of everybody's life. If you see the work you do and you don't do, we let the stories define us. And I let that story, I was always an A grade student. So whenever I would miss that one grade, one mark, and teacher would put that red line, that would stick into my head. And I would tell the story, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at this. So I remember in one of the speaking event that I had gone to, I could not be in the top. And that hit me very hard. And the story I was telling myself, I'm not good at speaking. I'm not good at speaking. But then, I over the years, I realized that this is the story I've been telling myself, but that should not define who I am. If it is true, first of all, is it true? May or may not be true. And if it is true, I still have the choice to actually change the story. So that is a very powerful, way of looking at things. What story are you telling yourself, and will you let that story define you? So when I actually dug deep into myself, there were many such stories that I was telling myself. I'm not a good cook. I'm not a good mother. And I used to tell I'm not a good mother when I used to come home late from work, and then see my children were not happy, and then I used to have that feeling of guilt of not giving enough time for them, and then, oh, I'm not a good mother. And then I would carry that guilt back to work, and then I would think about my children when I'm working at work, and then that would lead to a different story. Oh, I'm not a good worker here. So it's all the stories that we build around ourselves. And when we learn how to define, how to recognize the stories that we tell and what to do with those stories, then we can create a new reality for ourselves. So first is identifying what stories you're telling yourself. Are those stories true? And how can you change those stories? And I believe we have the choice. We have the choice to create a new story for ourselves and a new reality for ourselves.
And, I think it even goes further than that, that we actually have a responsibility, to figure out what stories are holding us back and then transform them. because like as you were just saying, that one story about like, oh, I'm not a good mother actually impacted your workplace, right? So you were carrying these negative stories around and they were affecting everything. It's not just like, oh, okay, I'm not a good mother, but then I'll just leave that story at home, and when I go out, like I'm a different person. No, those stories, they follow us everywhere. So I think that it's, you know, it's our responsibility to figure out what those stories are and transform them, because that's the only way that we'll actually be able to make an impact in the world.
Absolutely, and absolutely. And unless you pay attention, Elizabeth, to the stories that we're telling ourselves, we don't even realize that we are telling the stories. It
Yeah.
requires somebody like you, Elizabeth, talking to a group of people. See, this is the story you're telling yourself. Is this true? Sometimes it requires a third person like yourself to show them the mirror. Hey,
Yeah.
look, is this
Yeah.
the story? Is this the story you're telling yourself, or is this a fact? So
Yeah.
show them the mirror. So that's why these groups are so important, the groups like what you have created.
Yes, thank you. So actually, maybe this is a good time to share a few of the stories that my participants in Free Your Inner Writer are telling themselves, and it would be great if you could give us some advice, you know, about how to deal with those stories or those challenges that they're facing in terms of getting down to the writing. So one of them was saying recently that her biggest distraction is of her own making, spending time on social media or letting time slip by without setting a schedule. And so this is, you know, the thing that she pinpointed that's stopping her from the writing. What would you say?
Now, even before coming to writing or any task that is important to us, I would like to start with one thing, that is clarity. You know, I always like to ask my clients, starting with this question: imagine it is a year from now, or 3 years, or 5 years from now. Who do you like to be? What do we like to be known as? What do you want to achieve? Think of that. Don't think of the how you're going to achieve is the secondary part. It comes later. But if you don't have the clarity of what is it that you're going to achieve, you want to achieve, you really really want to achieve, you know, and have clarity around the what, then the how gets slowly clearer and clearer. But having the clarity around the what is extremely important. You actually got to feel it, you know, you got to feel viscerally. You know, imagine yourself as a writer. 1 year from now, 3 years from now, what are you writing about? What is your message about? You know, who are the people around you? Who your work is resonating with? Is it the children? Are the senior people resonating with your work? Where are they reading your work? What kind of language they're using? You know, so actually go visceral, feel the feelings of the people around you. Define it as clearly as possible, and then see on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you to get this work out? And another question, what is really important is, think of the impact your work would have on the people around you. How much of that impact you really really want to happen?
Yeah.
If that is important, then tell me, won't you carve out time for the work that is so meaningful for you? If that is going to make a difference in 1 million lives tomorrow with your one single work, won't you carve out the time to do that work that is so meaningful for you? So what the way I look at things is, if first of all defining why it is important. The what and the why is extremely important. If you don't have the what and the why clear, everything else, scheduling time, planning and writing, is not going to help you out, because that is only going to lead to more stress and more burnout, and working harder doesn't help. That you're going on a hamster wheel. The first exercise that you have to do is get clear on the what and the why. Why is it that work you are qualified to do, Elizabeth? Why is it the work that you are uniquely qualified to do? And what is it about your work that is so exciting for you? Once you're clear on that, then tell me about your time. You don't have the time, you don't have the energy, you don't have the space, or you don't have the motivation. I would challenge again this thinking. These are all excuses, because I have given these excuses myself. I now write on a regular basis. I don't write books, but I write blogs on a regular basis. But the story I was telling myself was, I don't have the time. I'm too busy with my family. I'm too busy with my other work. But these are excuses. The real thing was, you are hiding behind some of the emotions that you don't want to feel. So my question to you is, what are you hiding behind? What feelings you don't want to feel? And most of the time, it is those feelings of incompetency, it is those feelings of fear, it is those feelings of judgment, it is those feelings of rejection, it is those feelings of insecurity that is holding you back.
Yeah.
It is not that you don't want to do the work. You want to do the work because you like doing the work, but you're hiding behind those feelings. You're hiding behind those emotions. So you beautifully built a wall around that excuses. So it's a huge wall of excuses, and you have decorated it with all the stories that you have. I've done that, so I can tell that with confidence. I don't have the time. I'm too busy doing this. And I've decorated it with all the stories. And then what we do is we rationalize it. We rationalize it because this is our story. I'm not ready to face the fear. I'm not ready to come out of the comfort zone and do the work that is important to me. I'm not willing to face those fears. That's why I rationalize it. Okay, I don't have the time. But is that the truth? No.
Yeah.
We spend 3 hours on social media every day. But writing, even if you spend 10 to 15 minutes a day, will make a difference. So it's up to you, it's up to us to make the choice what is really important.
Yeah. I say that to my clients and students as well, that if you just wrote for 5 minutes a day, and like whether you're typing it or handwriting, it'll be anywhere between, let's say, 100 and 150 words in 5 minutes. And let's say it's just 100 words. At the end of the year, you have 3,600 words. That's a novella. That's like something like finished and done. And, like, it's a huge thing, but like just micro actions, right? But like it's so important, like you say, that we have to have like a vision and a why and a purpose, and that we work towards that. If we're just sitting down just to like, oh, I want to be a writer and I don't know what to say, it's going to be harder, to focus.
Yeah.
Another one says that I'm my biggest distraction because I'm a chronic multitasker. And so when they sit down to write, they're checking their mail, they're doing this, or a bunch of other things. What do you say to that?
So there's nothing such, no such thing as multitasking. You can only do one task at a time. And that's the only efficient way of doing work. So if you're so used to multitasking, that means there is a problem with priority. That means there is a problem with planning. So I generally advise all my people not to have more than 3 tasks in a day. It's the 3 big rocks. So early morning or even the night before, decide what are those 3 things that if you do will give you the biggest impact and satisfaction at the end of the day. And you decide the night before. You don't do any other work the next day till you have finished those 3 big rocks. Eat the frog. Eat the frog is what Brian Tracy says, and he says that for a purpose. Because once you have finished those big rocks, those big tasks that you have planned for yourself, the others are just free flowing.
Right.
So no more than 3 tasks a day. No distractions. Carve out time for yourself for those 3 tasks. And I like to work in chunks of 20 minutes or 90 minutes block. So carve out time, just like you would schedule a meeting with somebody, schedule a meeting with yourself, all the distractions off, whatever you need to do to put those distractions off, please do it. And then focus on those 3 tasks in those 20-minute blocks.
I love that splitting it into those 20-minute blocks. I started doing Pomodoro Method. Yes. And I kind of vary it. So sometimes I do like 45 minutes and then I take a break and do another 45 minutes. And but yeah, and I find that I'm so productive when I know it's like, okay, just get whatever I can done in these 45 minutes, and
I'll give you a bonus tip on that. So if you're doing this 20 minutes and 5 minutes, or 25 minutes and 5 minutes as per the Pomodoro technique, or the 45 minutes and 15 minutes, it works even better in a group. So you all come together, you're accountable in this group, like the challenge that you're doing. Sit together, 45 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever works. All of us are only, working on our thing. And then we only move 15 minutes during the break. It works wonderfully well.
Yeah, it does. I actually tried that through the novel writing month. November is the novel writing month. And so I had just once a week, people come to to a nearby cafe, a huge cafe, and we just sat there and I just put out the timer. And so like every like 20 minutes we'd stop and then have a 5-minute break and then get back into it. And so many people loved it. They couldn't believe how much they achieved just by doing that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes months of work gets done in 1 or 2 days, if you actually confine yourself to those blocks of time.
Yeah, it's amazing. And actually speaking to that, uh, I didn't follow Pomodoro Method. I didn't know about it at this time, but there's the novel writing weekend as well in September. So it's a long weekend, 3 days, and you just sit down and you write like for the whole 3 days. And the idea is to have a novel at the end of it. And so I was working on a nonfiction book though, but I had 93,000 words by the end of those 3 days.
Wow.
And I didn't
Wow.
stay up all hours, I worked like a 9 to 5, and I worked a little bit in the evening, but I went to bed at a reasonable time and didn't push myself, but I was focused. And so it really makes a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So,
the power of focus. Yeah.
yeah. So another person says, in terms of the challenges to actually get to the writing, she's always experienced that the needs of her family and they come first. So she says, I live alone with my husband, but I have 3 adult children and 4 grandchildren nearby. I've always allowed their desires for my time to be put ahead of my own needs, especially time for writing. So what advice do you have for her?
this is the common this is the common problem, I think, with most of the women. We always prioritize others' needs before our own, and it is important. But it is also important to recognize that unless we give time to ourselves, we are not our best version. We are not our best version. And when I say our time to ourselves, not only in terms of your health, but what you really like to do. Because when you really like to do and you do what you want to do, it sparks that inner energy, it sparks that life within you, and the quality of your relationships dramatically improves when you give that time to yourself. So self-care is not like a supplementary thing. I think it has to be a primary thing. And I always give this analogy of the mask that they tell us to wear in the, when you fly in the aeroplane. So what do they tell us? They tell us you cannot save somebody else or even your child unless you wear your oxygen mask first.
Yeah.
So remember to wear your oxygen mask first, and you see the difference when you wear your oxygen mask, when you take good care of yourself, whether it is food, whether it is exercising, whether it is sleep, whether it is doing the things that you love to do. See the difference between when you do this and when you don't do this. Which version of yourself do you want to give to your family?
Yeah.
And see the quality of the relationships that is different. For example, it doesn't mean when I spend five hours with my children is equal to 2 hours, but quality time when I'm fully present to them. Is 5 hours, those time important? Is the quality of your relationship, your presence of mind, your presence important? Are you actually being present to your family? And you can actually be present to your family only when you're present to yourself.
Wow, that's profound. Yeah. So our last one here is, she says, I moved to a new city this year and into a tiny flat that serves as our base for house hunting. With hubby working from home, I frequently get interrupted. It's hard to write when he's doing business calls because I can hear entire conversations. Now, this is particularly poignant in the time of COVID because we're still, in our homes, and cafes and libraries aren't open. So what do you suggest for her?
I think there are 2 things that are coming up for me. One is boundaries. You actually have to define your boundaries and you have to define his boundaries, you and your husband, and actually mutually have an agreement of what would work for both. If the goal of writing is important to you, then what timings could work for you? In a way, knowing the current constraints of reality, there's one house, there's one laptop, one living room where you both have to do something. So if this goal is important, be flexible enough with your writing as well as with the work that is important for your husband. So can you shift the time? Can you adjust the time in the morning? So it's a matter of being flexible as well as understanding your goal. And can you talk to your husband to see if he could shift the meetings to some other time? So it's a matter of, empathizing with each other, understanding each other's needs, and then carving out a schedule that fits both. So it is not an either or situation. Most of the time when we are in these situations, panicky situations, oh my God, I have only one laptop, I only one home, I have only one this, we think narrowly. And then we go into either or. Either he's giving me the laptop or no. Either I'm going to the meeting or no. So we go into that either or thinking. But if you actually calm down your nerves, know your work is important, know your husband's work is important, how can you mutually agree in a way that is helpful for both of you?
Yeah.
So talk it out, come out, talk to your husband, empathize with each other, understand his needs, and make sure that you're demonstrating your needs as well, and work it out together. So there is never an either or situation. There is always something that comes out if you're being empathizing with each other's needs.
Yeah, and it reminds me of zero sum, the zero sum model that like if there's not enough pie to go around, like if they get some, then I'm going to get nothing. Yeah, so that's another story that we tell ourselves. Yeah, right. So
Yeah.
like I really enjoy hearing your perspective, because I think a lot of times people do need to hear it from somebody other than a writer, like,
Yeah.
you're an emotional intelligence coach, you work with the executives. And I think that sometimes people wouldn't think that, oh, what does that have to do with me? I'm a writer, I'm a creative person, or I'm trying to be, so how does, executive coach have any correlation to me? So that's what I'd like to ask you now is what connection do you see between being an executive coach and creativity, leadership and creativity? What's the connection?
I think one thing that is extremely important, whether you're a leader or whether you're an entrepreneur or writer, is, like I said, knowing your why. So even if it is a big businesses need to know the why, in which direction they have to go. It is not just running your business or your day-to-day business, because COVID-19 has changed so much. So unless you have a vision for 10 to 15 years or even 5 years down the line, which direction your company needs to steer, you cannot carve out the strategies for today. So just like the entrepreneurs do, what is a vision that you want to, what is a vision you're envisaging for yourself? So that is one common thread, whether it's a big company, whether it's an entrepreneur, whether it's a solopreneur, you need to have a vision and then, steer up to in that direction. The second parallel, what I can draw upon is whatever market, in leadership or in businesses, we venture a new market or we roll out a new product, and then you come down to the specifics. So same thing goes for writers. You have a big project, so at that time it looks too big. Oh my God, it's a too big. How would I achieve that? So what we do when executing projects is breaking it down. So if I have to achieve this goal of venturing into a new market by 2023, what is it that I need to get done by in the 3 years that has to go to meeting towards that goal? So what are those individual components that are important towards reaching my goal? So just drawing parallel to your work, it's like if I have to finish a book, say, for example, my deadline is 2023, what are the individual components that need to be in place for my goal to write a book, to finish writing the book by 2023? What are the resources that I need to help me write the book? What is the support system that I need to help me write the book? What are the individual components? And once I have those individual components in place, for example, this is a milestone I want to achieve by 2020, break it down further, and then knock off one domino at a time. You don't think of the big thing that I have to finish by 2023, that will happen. But what is your immediate goal in 2020? 2023 is when I publish my book. But 2020 is maybe finishing one chapter. And what is the one domino, and then work backwards. What is the one domino I need to hit today, and then get the support, ask for help. This is where many leaders fail even today, because they're not willing to ask for help. And why? Because most of the time it is that ego playing out. I think I know everything, I don't need help. And we all have that stories. If I ask for help, I'm a weak person. No, that is not the truth. You're a very strong person, because you have the courage and humility to say that you need help, and that's how you will create an impact. So as a writer, if you need help, ask for help. And another thing is resources, having the right resources, whether it is a support system. For leaders, it is a leader network. Being part of a very powerful community helps a lot, because that brings in new perspectives. that challenges that old way of thinking, that challenges, encourages new ways of thinking. So similar to that, in the writers, like you have a community, be in that community, actively participate in the community, listen to new perspective, challenge your own ideas, challenge your own thinking. This is extremely important.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Um, and you have something to offer, a gift to offer our listeners and viewers. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I have shared a link with you. It is about working from home. So I've put some few tips and strategies about how do you best work from home. So it might be useful to one of the participant who was asking about how do you, manage when your husband is at home and you're at home. And it speaks a little bit about the tips and strategies about working from home. It also includes some strategies when if you have a remote team of people, how do you manage a remote team effectively when most of your team is working from home. And I think I've also included a bonus on how do you calm yourself down if you're anxious. So it includes as a bonus tip on managing anxiety. And if people want to connect with me to know more about my work, you can share my website or you can share my email address. I'll
Yeah.
be happy to connect with them to take this discussion further.
Awesome. Yeah, I will give them those links so that they can get in touch with you. That's it's just so great. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your insight and your wisdoms with us. And I hope that you'll come back again and chat with us. Thank you so much, Archana.
Sure, Elizabeth. It was a pleasure talking to you and your audience. And if anybody has any further questions, you can drop them down to me and I'll reply. Thank you very much.
Thank you again to Archana Shetty for a most enlightening chat today. And thank you to all our viewers and listeners too. A quick reminder that the free week, A Free Your Inner Writer, is ongoing, but the free part ends on Sunday. And tomorrow, June 4th at 5 p.m. Eastern is the deadline to take advantage of the Watershed Edition price of just $197. After that, the program reverts to its regular price of $297. Now, something to take note of though, the Free Your Inner Writer program is actually a self-directed 30-day program. But because of the extraordinary circumstances we find ourselves in because of COVID, I've added to the program by having guest speakers to address a variety of issues throughout our 30 days together. There's also a private Facebook group where you can interact with like-minded souls, and on the interview today, we understood the importance of community. Plus, in the program Free Your Inner Writer, there are weekly Q&A sessions, plus more surprises coming. So make sure you join us for this unique writing journey. It may never come again. To find out more about the Free Your Inner Writer program, go to bit.ly/FYIW-2020. That's FYIW-2020. Until next time, this is Elizabeth Johnston, encouraging you to own your creativity so you think, feel, and do better in your personal and professional life.